Hey YouTube, it's Gamer Inc. here, and we're getting ready to dive into this box of Darkest Dungeon, the board game. This hit my doorstep the other day, and it is wave 1 of the rewards that are getting sent out to Kickstarter backers. This launched back in 2020, and this box will include the base game as well as the Crimson Court expansion. Now, the other expansions that are going to be coming along as part of anybody that pledged to the Ancestral level should be hitting doorstep sometime in the first quarter of 2023. But this gives us a sneak peek at what to expect, and we're also going to be comparing it to some other miniature board games that I have found in the past, like the Walking Dead all-out miniature game from Mantic Games that they did as a Kickstarter a while back, as well as some classic favorites like Space Hulk from Games Workshop. Now make sure you like and subscribe to the video because we will be doing some other Darkest Dungeon content as I get ready to take on a hard mode playthrough of the video game, and we'll come back later on next year and do an unboxing of the Wave 2, which includes the Cove Warrens, Weld, and Colors of Madness expansion, and a few other add-ons that I picked up towards the end of the Kickstarter. So let's jump on in and see what we have in this box. Alright, so as we start cracking into the main box here, we'll see that they did a very excellent job in packaging this up. I was quite impressed that we didn't run into any of the boxes that had corner damage or dings or dents, so that was really nice to see that everything arrived in tip-top shape. In the bottom of the box, we found the extra that came along with this as part of the Kickstarter, which was a stretch goal of including the Musketeer miniature. The last box that we pull out here is the base game. So we have the base game, the miniatures, the Musketeer, and the Crimson Court expansion box. So the first thing we'll start with is opening up the core box. Now this will just be the base game pieces, the tokens, the cards, the dice, everything except for the miniatures that you need to play the game. I'm definitely not wanting to damage or scratch up these boxes as I open them up here because the artwork on these are phenomenal, and I am a big advocate of keep your boxes in as good of a condition as you possibly can because I am not only a gamer but I am also a collector. So box integrity is very important to me when it comes to games, models, and all that kind of stuff. And of course the beautiful art that you see in the video game is translated to the box art of these games very nicely. It's got a nice matte feel to it. And boy is this box heavy, so there is a lot of goodies to be found inside. This is probably the heaviest box of the three. A nice little note here from the studio just thanking us for being a part of the Kickstarter backer, as well as a little flyer for what's up and coming here from Mythic Games, so we'll check that out later. This here's a little pack of the cardboard punch-outs that you do for all of the game piece tokens. This here looks like what you do to start building up your hamlet, upgrading your buildings. I'll get this unwrapped here so we can get a better look at the artwork that's inside each one of these. These here would be our character cards. Game pieces. And it looks like these will punch out of the cardboard very easily with little to no effort. These here are the game mat tiles, so these are what you will use to build your dungeon as you go exploring through the ruins. I believe in the other expansions you'll get other game tiles to build the dungeons, so that way they kind of resemble the different areas of the expansions. These game tiles should be for the ruins and the darkest dungeon. I haven't read through all of the instructions to the game as of yet, but I believe these tiles are numbered, which kind of helps you to correctly align your pieces when you're generating your dungeons. And again, the artwork is just phenomenal, exactly what you expect to see if you are a fan of the video game. And here we're looking at tiles that would make up the darkest dungeon itself, with all its gooey, fleshy bits. And there are quite a lot of pieces in this box, so no wonder it was so heavy. Below the tiles here we have a big bag of dice. These vary in size and color. We have some traditional D10s. We have some dice that look like you roll for your different provisions. I'm believing these are your death door saves. And then we also have what appears to be dice for provision dice. These are excellent quality dice, coming from a dice maker myself. There are several decks of cards here for different uses. And opening up this first deck, these here are your cards for your curios. And again, the artwork in here is just phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of the artwork of Darkest Dungeon. This here is a much smaller set of cards, and these are how you apply the different quirks to your hero characters, whether good or bad. Initiative cards. And afflictions. This deck here is your Nomad Wagon with your various trinkets that you can pick up. And as well as diseases. We can't forget those diseases, can we? These here are the ability cards for all of the different hero characters. So as you learn or upgrade your abilities, these cards will reflect the different levels of training that you've received on your skills. I really enjoy how everything is nicely packaged, so that way you can easily store all of your cards and tokens for future use, keeping your game pieces in pristine condition. Here are the various different boss abilities through all of their different levels. I do believe there was an add-on that you could purchase in the Pledge Manager that provided you with sleeves for the different cards. I'm not sure if they provided sleeves for all of the different cards or just only certain ones, but that was an offering they added. These are the different cards for your quests, your Hamlet events. And it seems like they pretty much brought every aspect of the video game into the board game as best as they could. And again, absolutely loving the art that they have on the backs of these cards. And here are all the various different abilities you have for your random mobs. Ah, maggots. And who can forget the spiders and the spitters? This guy here, I have deemed his name to be Maurice whenever we do our video game playthrough. Call him Crazy Old Maurice. But these are really well crafted and designed. And just really enjoying the time they took in bringing over all of the original art from the video game and translating it into the board game. They also included these Ziploc bags with their branding on them. Great way to store your pieces once you punch them out of the cardboard. And lastly, we have a whole bundle here of the various different tokens and a few additional cards. As we crack through this, there is another packet of some boss cards. some game piece boards along with a board on how you track your Hamlet progress. With the back of this board having some beautiful artwork again. Various tokens. I'm imagining that's just a little add-on sticker or piece of artwork, and a notepad for tracking your party progress. I believe these here are the player game boards. An additional card showcasing all of the different boss fights. Cards for all of your different player characters. I'm not really able to go too much into depth of what all these different cards are because I have not yet read through all the instructions on how the game is played. If you would all like to see a playthrough of the game, I would be willing to get some friends together and we could do a little video showcasing a playthrough. Be kind of a learn as we go playing experience. And these are all of the different layouts for the dungeons that you can encounter along the way, helping you build your gamed play tiles. And you can see the ones that are for the darkest dungeon in there as well. And they also include an additional little storage box that holds all of these loose cards that don't have their own box. In a great way of keeping all of your player pieces in mint condition for future play. And then here we have the manual walking us through the gameplay. As well as all of the additional tokens that are needed. Keeping track of poison counts, bleeds. And here is the game rules. Walking you through all of the different aspects of getting the game going. As well as everybody's favorite bony boys. It's a very well done player's manual. Alright, so we're going to take just a moment here to put all of our loose cards that we opened up into this fantastic storage box that they provided. Just a nice way of keeping all of those miscellaneous cards intact. And then now we can arrange everything back into the box. It all nicely stacks here in the different compartments that they provide. Collect up all of our dice. And next we will move on to the miniatures. This here was a stretch goal miniature they provided to backers of the Kickstarter, and this is for the Musketeer. So here they included all of her hero cards that are needed to play the character. Her hero token, as well as her abilities. And of course, the Musketeer miniature herself. At first glance, these minis look fantastic. I'm excited to see more. Just by first glance of this Musketeer, it looks like they've got some really great details that will make these a joy and an ease to paint. So this strong box has got 2 additional boxes inside and contains all of the minis that you need for the base game. This would be our hero characters and all of the enemies that you would face in the ruins and the darkest dungeon. Originally they had proposed of doing all of the enemies in a red plastic and all of the heroes in a gray plastic, but I believe they ran into some issues with that during production, and so they decided to do a 2-tone gray plastic for heroes and enemies. This first layer appears to be all enemy characters, and they provide a nice little guide on the lid to show you how all of the miniatures arrange in the blisters, so that way you can put them back and they all fit appropriately into their spaces. And my favorite bony boy, crazy old Maurice, throwing the goblet of wines at you. Crazy old Maurice throwing the goblet of wine at you. Now, seeing as these are one-piece minis that don't require any assembly, the first thing I noticed is they are quite heavy. Some minis that I have dealt with in the past, specifically from Games Workshop, require a bit of assembly to them, and so they tend to be a little hollow as you build up the minis because of the nature of their assembly. Since these are all cast as one model, they are solid plastic and very heavy. I actually quite enjoy the weight that you have in these minis. And I think they will set on the tabletop really nicely without having a lot of issues with being knocked over when reaching around the table. I also find that their sculpts are very crisp and have lots of nice detail. When it comes to painting these, I think they will take washes and shading very well. So here's a quick look over this first layer of miniatures out of the box. Here, we'll put this one off to the side and we'll dive into the next layer. This pack here includes all of the hero characters. And as you can see, they're in a slightly lighter color of gray. This will be a nice way to help kind of differentiate the heroes from the enemy characters on the board if you have no intention of painting your minis. Everyone's favorite crit heal bleeder. And a personal favorite of mine is the Grave Robber. I did like the nice little touch in the bottoms of the bases with the Mythic Games logo. One thing I enjoy of plastic models versus other models that I've seen from creators such as Reaper Bones with their white plastic. The white plastic from Reaper Bones tends to be a much softer, and you tend to have issues with things like swords or wings becoming deformed or bent. Sometimes you would often see in Games Workshop minis being cast in what they call a fine cast material, which tends to be a very brittle type of plastic and is very prone to having air bubbles and issues that you have to go back and manually fix. This plastic is much truer to what you would see in Games Workshop models of the gray plastic. And this is by far some of my favorite medium to paint on. I'm also not seeing any real indication of mold lines on these minis, so I think a little bit of primer and they would be ready to go as far as painting. And here is another overview of the minis in this layer. There are multiples of several of the different enemy characters, that way you can be appropriately swarmed by spiders as you would be in the game. And here everything fits nicely back into the box, and we will check out what is in the second layer. Now this layer appears to contain all of the larger monsters and bosses. Here we have the Heart of Darkness. And as these are a solid plastic, this is quite the hefty model. It's got a lot of weight to it. Here is the collector in all of his glory with all of his skeletons and skulls inside his cape. I think they did an excellent job of capturing the artwork of a 2D character into a 3D model. I'll be very excited to check out the Darkest Compendium when it arrives to see what their recommended painting techniques and methods are for these. Again, I'm very impressed with the lack of mold lines on a lot of these minis. Depending on how meticulous you are, I feel these are going to take very little effort to clean up and be ready for primer and paint. They also included the Abomination's alternate form. And here are a couple of other minis just for a little bit of a size comparison. And here is the Musketeer and the Abomination just for a little size comparison. And here's a little size comparison between the Musketeer and the final boss of the Darkest Dungeon. Here's where we can do a little size comparison between the miniatures you will find in the Kickstarter for the Walking Dead All-Out War game. I find that the Darkest Dungeon minis are probably a slightly larger scale, just a tiny bit taller, a little bit more robust, and I feel they probably fall more along the line of the scale of a Warhammer miniature. This here is a Nurgle Blight King next to the Musketeer for another size reference. And another quick overview of this layer of miniatures in this blister. The divots in the lid of this blister make it so that you can properly align your lid to your miniatures. And we'll take another quick second to appreciate the box art. Each one of these sides just showing you another layer of corruption that happens inside the Darkest Dungeon, which I thought was a very nice touch.
find that the multiple boxes make it much easier to transport and carry your minis in the future. Even once they're painted, I feel this will be a great way to protect your miniatures. And I wanted to use the Space Hulk game as a quick reference for kind of how they handle their miniatures. Again, intending that most people may not paint them, they did a 2-color plastic option. With the Tyranids in blue and the Space Marines in red, it helps to easily differentiate between the different characters on the board. And another size comparison against the Musketeer model. So these are very much more in line of what you would find in the Warhammer line of models. Hero characters are probably about the same size you would find in Space Marines and Terminator armor. And lastly, we will dive into the Crimson Court expansion box. Again, a fantastic touch with the box art. A rule book showing the different miniatures and the rule expansions. Additional game boards to show the different areas of the courtyard. Additional enemy cards for the various bosses that you'll find inside the courtyard. And of course, we'll have additional curios, quests, and boss cards with this expansion. But I'm sure what we're all looking forward to seeing are the miniatures in this expansion. Now this has kind of a 1.5 layer stack to it, so the smaller case here looks like it includes some of the pests that we encounter. One of my favorite little guys who always carries the different invitations into the courtyard. Now here we get into some of the larger models of the different bosses that we find inside the courtyard, like the Countess. the little pustules and such are giving me some very Nurgle vibes from playing Warhammer, so I think these will be a lot of fun to paint, as that is one of my favorite armies that I like to do. Now this is quite a unique model. It's probably one of the longest models with this long reaching protrusion. And just for a bit of a size reference here, he barely fits in the palm of my hand. But due to the fact that this is a solid model, I don't think there's any fear in him wanting to tip over. There is quite a bit of weight to the base of him. But I felt they did a very nice job in capturing a lot of the really nice and crisp details. Compared to the miniatures that came in the Walking Dead box game, I feel that these had much cleaner details that'll really show through when you start to paint these.
And there you have it, gamers. That is everything that was included in this first wave of shipping. This is the core set of the game, which includes this box of all of the game pieces, tokens, and cards, as well as the board map to get started, and this box that includes all of the miniatures, which cover the ruins and the Darkest Dungeon itself, plus your hero characters. Now, the Crimson Court is an add-on expansion. The rest of the expansions are expected to show up sometime in the first part of the quarter of 2023, which will include the Cove, the Weld, the Warrens, as well as the Color of Madness. I do also have a couple of other add-ons that we could pick up that are on their way as well, which is the Darkest Compendium. That includes a painting guide and all of the artwork that went behind creating the board game. And I also got the alternate sculpts for all of the hero characters that will be shipping in Wave 2 as well. And remember to like and subscribe, everybody, because we will be back sometime in the first part of 2023 when Wave 2 comes out, and we will dive into the rest of the miniatures and the expansions that come with the Darkest Dungeon board game. We'll see you next time.